Today I have for you Wolfenstein Old Blood, the Re Re Reboot of the classic Wolfenstein 3D, which in turn was a reboot of the classic Castle Wolfenstein way back when. Wolfenstein Old Blood is a first-person shooter developed by Machine Games and published by good old Bethesda in 2014 for the PS4, Xbox One, and Windows PC. Playing Wolfenstein 3D back in the day and starting with Old Blood now is a real look how far gaming has come moment. When playing Wolf 3D, I often wondered what games would look like 20 years on, and voila, Old Blood is here. Now from Wolf 3D's chunky bit crush sound effects to Wolf Old Blood's far more modern sound work. Now back on release, I didn't get to play Old Blood, but I did get into the New Order, New Colossus, and I really enjoyed the punchy guns and the over-the-top writing. So coming into this, I knew I was in for a good time. Now a thing I didn't know until I researched it for this video, old mate Mick Gordon did the soundtrack for Old Blood. Now you can hear his energy and style that he would later become famous for in Doom. Now the game opens with BJ Blazkowicz in the back of a German staff car in alternate reality 1946, where World War II is still raging and it's going Germany's way. Now just before we go any further, BJ's voice actor is Brian Bloom. He absolutely kills it. BJ in this is very raw and very real. Now yes, the character does at times do superhuman feats, as you take on small armies, but Brian's take on BJ has him caring deeply about his comrades, being very reflective on his situation, to just some good old-fashioned soft reassurance, which in turn makes BJ feel very grounded on a character level. BJ and his comrade slowly make their way into the castle. BJ tells Wesley that his German is a tad rusty. So we're treated to a rather tense pass-checking scene as BJ meets the infamous Rudy, a central figure on base, as they make a very nervous small talk and miraculously they decide to let BJ through. Now the boys are tasked with locating a folder with German war secrets. After we make some headway into the facility, we get our first real weapon of the game's silenced pistol, which is basically a juiced up Luger that is great for stealth kills. Now after a little sneaking practice, the boys locate Helga's workstation and set off an alarm. The first real fight of the game in Helga's workstation is wild fun. Both your guns blaring wildly, shouting left and right as waves of enemies pour out at you. After being perhaps the sneakiest operative we can, we manage to survive the fight, but are immediately caught by Jaeger and his goons. As we awaken in our cell, we're introduced to an unexpected mechanic, the game's climbing. Although it really does kind of fit with the whole infiltration style the game is going for, and in a way the game is throwing back to Wolf 3D, just then as now, the action doesn't really start until you break out of a prison cell. Onto more of the prison and our first enemy of the game. The first generation of super soldiers. Big, heavily armored dudes with miniguns. Now their weakness is they need a constant power source to function, so you have a choice here. Either stealth kill them or go loud. But after surviving a few gunfights with them, I decided to go the stealth route. Now after we head down a random path, we come across some gold. Another cheeky little reference to Wolf 3D's treasure collecting from back in the day. After we and BJ get the hang of our surroundings, we come to this hallway where we're basically playing hide and seek with the super soldier. You have to slowly push a cart while he's not looking, or he will shred you. But once you've snuck past the big guy, our next stop is to power up a nearby lift and make it deeper into the facility. As we come to our next part of the facility, we come to the kennels, as we see Jaeger from earlier feeding a prisoner to one of his dogs. And we're in for some good old sneaky gameplay. Creep around the dogs and make your way through the service tunnels and in the underground sewer. But before we make it all the way to the sanitarium, we need to quickly dispatch one of those pesky super soldiers and advance forward. Now after making it to the sanitarium, BJ chats with a prisoner who has dementia, and he thinks back to how it's affected him and his own family. But as to dampen that moment, and I truly do agree with BJ's assessment on this, one big fucking steel dog arrives. Now, a giant steel dog starts patrolling the sanitarium. But as we go to make our escape, the ever-large doggo, for just a moment ago, chases us down as we make our way to the docks. Now once we get a clear picture of the docks, and after that little game of fetch, we catch a glimpse of Rudy, taking off yet again with Wesley in a boat. And the prison dock now fully open to us. The game has you taking out commanders, so they don't call for reinforcements, adding an enjoyable amount of tension to the gameplay. Now once getting things kicked off, we pick up another silenced pistol. Now I do appreciate the fact that it is a one shot, one kill headshots pistol. So many games make headshots a 2 to 3 shot affair that dampens the fun. Now you want your shooting to be visceral, and Wolf delivers that in spades. Making our way downtown, walking fast, Germans pass and I'm homebound. Keeping it quiet as we go for the second commander because stealth is kind of fun and very satisfying. We find the Kampfpistole, a single shot grenade launcher pistol of sorts and using it to cut our way to the exit. We first must unlock an access hatch before we can chase down Rudy in the boat. But what do you know, flipping that very access switch woke up all the nearby Germans. And it's time for a firefight! Enemies high and low, I made the best use of the assault rifle to make short work of them, finally getting to the boat and blasting our way out of the docks with the boat's minigun. Now after a little travel, we are attacked by a new enemy, a rocket shooting drone. But nothing can stop a minigun. Making our way through the boat service tunnels, I noticed some quality game design. The bright blue power packs on the backs of most enemies are great when engaging them at a distance, as the bright blue stands out quite nicely, contrasted against the at times grey and browns of the game. The blue packs work very well. Blasting our way through German reinforcements, we find another gunboat and head for the nearby keep. We start to see less of the dark and dreary and more of the blue and open areas of the castle. The docks really open up, giving you more lanes of approach, while still keeping you quite focused. Now as we sleuth our way through the docks, we come across the Bonanza, a high damage bolt action rifle that with the scope attachment becomes an absolute headshot machine. Now once we successfully manage to sneak our way through the docks, making good use of the silenced pistol, we find the keys we need on a dead commander and head into the catacombs. Once we get into the belly of the underground, the catacombs are very catacomby. Piles of bones and tombs everywhere. The catacombs are a fantastic place to really appreciate the Bonanza. The stop and pop power of the rifle with the added bonus of the gun sounding like you're hitting the Nazis with a truck. Mate, it is very satisfying to use. But because I don't know how to be stealthy, another breakout fight ensues with the nearby soldiers. It is quite the bloody mess, but thanks to dual wielding, the STGs, and just pure luck, I managed to make it through. Once clearing out that bunch, we head on up into the wine cellar and another group of goons. Cool little section though. Another tough fight in clearing the cellar. And once we get the sniper scope for our old pal Mr. Bonanza, making it an absolute beast at long range. Back out and further on, we get the game's shotgun, the shock hammer, a semi-auto lawn mower that makes short work of those pesky Nazis. Like all Wolfenstein Old Blood guns, it is very loud, punchy, and quite fun to use. Once getting our hands on it, there's a great little section as what feels like playing basically whack-a-mole with the shock hammer. Germans keep popping up and you quickly sit them back down again. To make our way into the keep, we have to deal with a few heavies and assault troopers. Now I did my best impersonation of King Leonidas and lured them into a narrow choke point where the numbers counted for nothing, which made my life a lot easier. But still, even on normal, they pushed me a lot and kept me on my toes for some quite fun times. The keep starts off strong as we get into a boss fight with the super soldier from earlier, but with a newer version, which can now move on its own. The newer version also isn't as easily taken down. As unlike before, once you get them into a down state, a takedown only strips him off a piece of armor. But again, all that armor is no match for BJ and a shotgun. The duel with the super soldier sets off an alarm and we have another fun fight on our hands. Pushing our way higher in the building, we come across a turret, and after a close quarters brawl getting there, letting loose on a minigun is so very goddamn satisfying. Onto the keep's kitchen, we get a cool little stealth section. BJ sneaks his way along the rafters of the kitchen, taking out the guards as he goes, almost James Bond style, and once all the commanders are dead, it's time to go loud. Once escaping the kitchen, we stumble across some service tunnels and make our way into the officers' quarters. Now, me on an adrenaline high from back-to-back fun gunfights was a little stuck here, as I spent a good 5 minutes looking for the way forward, only to need to cut through a blocked off chimney. I swear the super easy stuff really stumps me sometimes. But next up for BJ on his German adventure, we come across what is essentially a massive estate room / dining area with massive open dining rooms and a large stained glass windows, coloured beautifully to contrast against the grey and red of the Nazis. The state room is basically a fortress, with multiple security checkpoints and another failed attempt at stealth, and yet another great shootout, narrowly avoiding death while dealing out massive damage. We make our way out of the stateroom and into the adjoining library. Now it's time for the shock hammer to be the star of the show. The hectic gunfights and all-mate mix, awesome score, all the way, make this game deliver on its thrills quite strongly. But once things quiet down, we approach an operating theatre and track down BJ's mate Leslie. Off the bat though, this is clearly a trap. Poor Leslie is staged in the middle of an empty room as BJ approaches and has a word with Leslie. We are almost immediately set up on by Jaeger and his dogs. Jaeger, the cruel fuck, fed Leslie to his dog. Now once BJ comes to, Rudy wastes no time in attempting to jumpstart BJ's tonsils. We get treated to a great fuck you from BJ as Rudy questions BJ about who his contact in the village is, and BJ replies Claus. Now Rudy says Claus who? And BJ so eloquently replies Santa Claus. Rudy, not too happy about this, stabs BJ with his trusty pipe. And just as Rudy goes to finish off BJ manages to break his restraints and stab Rudy, causing him to flee, and no small number of German reinforcements to arrive. This fight in the operating theatre against Jaeger's backup is bloody tough. I died more than a few times, as you take fire from all angles and generally are short on ammo. But I managed thankfully to find the nearby guard's armory and gear up just enough to survive the onslaught. Now after BJ, yet again, balls to the wall, wins another fight, we escape the castle and head on to the village. And with that, on to chapter 4, Escape. The chapter opens with BJ needing to take a cable car down the side of the mountain. But first, he needs to clear it. We take out the two commanders holding the station hostage. Yet another fight. I don't quite get stealthy enough, so smashing our way through the nearby enemies is the way to go. We call up a car chock full of German reinforcements, pushing onto the cable car, making our dazzling escape. But before BJ can make a clean getaway, those pesky Germans don't let us get far. They cut the power to our line, and we need to zip line down to the platform to get another ride out of here and turn the power back on. Therefore, once the power is back on, we get some new visitors and make short work of them before we're back outside and once again on our way out. But once we get within range of the final passageway, BJ's car comes under some heavy fire, and BJ, with no real other options, has to abandon ship, awakening in a nearby cave system. We awaken to a group of Germans camped throughout the nearby caves, and I make the unfortunate mistake of turning the wrong corner at the best or possibly worst time, depending on your perspective, as an entire squad of Germans gets BJ in their sights and lets him have it. Within a second, a hail of bullets are coming our way. This underground section is pretty neat. It's a mess of tight and narrow caves, chock full of enemies, ambushes, allowing us to push our way through the cave system. Now, after dealing with that self-inflicted ambush, another great point in the game's favor, while you're clearing the caves, now at the very end of the passage there was a guy in a turret. Now, I'm sure we've all played shooters where turret gunners are invincible until you hit certain gameplay markers. It's nice to be able to take them out in a way that feels natural in the setting and style of the combat. After that little fiesta, we find an elevator in our path to freedom, which brings us back outside, giving us a great view of the bridge from earlier. Heading both for it and underneath it, we get to shred some drones with a minigun. It feels like the game gives you the short end of the stick and then turns it around and gives it to your enemies. To me, a perfectly fun balance in all honesty. Now back towards and onto the bridge, we come to a familiar sight from earlier. The admission area from earlier, where we first met Jaeger and had our papers checked. Hunting through the office area and surrounding rooms as we head towards the security checkpoint we have to cross before we come to the town. Now BJ, being BJ, sets off an alarm on his way out of the base, so we have to contend with a massive wave of reinforcements. Seeing the predicament, I thought no better time than to rock the dual STGs once again, but my fun gets ruined by a couple of drones blasting their rockets with their pesky splash damage, knocking me out of the way and out of my cover more times than I'd like. But once that lot are turned to scrap, a super soldier turns up to quickly ruin your day yet again, who is almost immediately followed up by that large fucking dog from earlier. The oversized popper chases you down relentlessly, but isn't a fan of explosives. Quite a nice little boss fight getting through those two. And to the point I made earlier, after the game, make sure it's bitch, you immediately get a minigun to shred enemy reinforcements. After clearing out the checkpoint, we finally make to the nearby town of Paderborn. Before we link up with Kessler, our contact, we stop to give a local drunk some spare change. Because those pesky Germans don't believe in rest, almost the moment after meeting Kessler and Anna were attacked by German reinforcements as they assault the tavern that they were hiding in. Now we have to face down a few enemy waves coming through the tavern windows. BJ remarks the insane amount of Nazis in the world, but just before we get the all clear to go after Kessler, Jaeger bursts down the door in a frenzy, with a minigun under each arm, seeking furious yet passionate revenge for his beloved dog. The dual minigun boss fight kinda reminded me a lot of Hans Gross from Wolf 3D. Jaeger is very large and very imposing, similar to the super soldier fights from earlier. You wear him down and then take his armor off piece by piece, targeting his power pack to create openings. Now once defeated and avoiding his explosive ending, we head after Kessler and Anna and make our escape. On to part 2 and chapter 5, Wolfsburg and Helga. After escaping Paderborn, we come to a Wolfsburg jetty on our way to meet Agent 2. Dealing with a fresh bunch of commanders and some enemy patrols, I have the good sense, this time, to take out the commanders first. The town of Wolfsburg itself is very classical European in its design, with a lot of nice old school buildings overshadowed by a massive airship in the distance and an almost oppressive stance over the town. We are treated to a few fun gunfights as we clear that very same town. But once we manage to clear the town streets, we make it to the square and come up against a large group of enemies backed up by some super soldiers. Now I tell ya, after the shooting match you have with the super soldiers, getting to take one of their miniguns and turning on their former comrades is so damn fun. The chaos of a gunfight, then you throw a minigun into the mix and it turns you into a lead spewing wrecking ball. I'm over here having a hell of a good time. Spotting our friend, the town drunk once again, who leads us to an old friend of BJ's, his friend Pippa. Old friends from missions past, Pippa gives BJ essential info on Helga and her folder. Both are holed up at a nearby tavern. Now we must head off to the aforementioned tavern and act as a waiter to hopefully get an eye on the folder. As we make our way to the tavern, we slip into some workers' clothes and make our way through the tavern. Soldiers are drinking, singing, and causing all sorts of havoc. We find out that Helga is a wine connoisseur, so we get our hands on some and head for her office upstairs in the tavern. We finally come face to face with the twisted Helga. BJ tries to pull the old sneaky and slip the folder under his wine tray, but Helga is onto him, so Helga and her friend Schneider, a commander, sit down and have a little taste test. Helga's giving BJ the eye and she asks BJ to try the wine. BJ and his poor German don't convince Helga of his sincerity, so he practically gets busted. But thankfully for BJ, a blast goes off at Helga's dig site, causing chaos at the tavern, and Helga and Schneider set off, leaving BJ to his own devices. And with that development, we're on to chapter 6, The Ruins. Heading back outside and we get a glimpse of what Helga's unearthed. Fucking zombies. The Nazis will use any weapon no matter how crazy or how spooky. Now I did not expect zombies. As we fight our way through a handful of undead at the tavern and we emerge back outside to see Wolfsburg completely in flames with both soldier and civilian turned into monsters. This whole scene is intense to say the least. As we make our way through hordes of the undead, as you fight through the town, you get an almost aggressive level of drums in the background, making this chaotic scene feel far more desperate. Our friend old mate Mick does it once again. Once we get back to Pippa's place to get our weapons back, sadly we aren't fast enough to save Pippa, and BJ has to watch her die. But thankfully after that we get our guns back. Heading through the nearby houses towards Helga's dig site. Although we're now heavily armed, the undead are numerous and still a solid threat. Once they detect you, they'll bum rush you, and if you're not careful, you'll be in for a very bad time. After surviving that onslaught and making it back to familiar ground, the boathouse from earlier, we come across the super shotgun, the double barrel sawed-off. Made me feel like Ash Williams banishing the undead hordes with my broomstick. Now after that little escapade, we emerge back into the heart of Wolfsburg to see the city completely ablaze and overrun. That big scary blimp we saw earlier also falls from the sky. What the hell did Helga's team find? Back to the square from earlier, we see the living fight the dead. I notice a handy tactic here. Nazis once killed will turn on their former comrades, making them an effective tool for disruption and just general chaos. But once we get further through a devastated Wolfsburg, we spot Anna and Kessler in need of urgent help. You get a choice here, and I chose to save Anna. We arrive just in time to save her from being an after dinner snack, and are treated to a scene where BJ plans to help her find her missing friend, but Anna stops him and tells him to go stop Helga. Good girl that Anna. We cross the street in an attempt to save Kessler, but are far too late. As a grief-stricken BJ muses on the fact that the more you hide from monsters, the more they come all the same, he sets off into the belly of the beast. And with that, we're on to chapter 7, Old Town. BJ comes across the service mech, so BJ hops in and psychs himself off for one more push, using the mech's destructive power to clear a path through the town and its hordes of undead, all the while keeping your spacing, because if you aren't careful, they can climb up your mech and damage you directly. Now if they do manage to get past you, nothing stands up to our old friend the super shotgun. And now all the while this is going on, the drums from earlier are back to an almost phenomenal effect. The fight towards the dig site feels almost like some kind of savage ritual that we're a part of. Drums beating beating, your heart's pounding, guns blasting, things are really turned up to 11. But before we can head on to the dig site proper, first we need to open a way forward through the church. Ditching our beloved mech, we make our way through the undead, taking advantage of our minigun for crowd control as we push towards the end of the church to flip a switch and head on into Chapter 8. Chapter 8, the dig site. The dig site sets quite a tone from the outset. We emerge into a graveyard full of twisted ground and broken headstones to find all the soldiers inside are isolated from the chaos that hit the city. Onto the nearby guard encampment, taking out the tower with our friend Mr. Bonanza, and mopping up the stragglers. We come across a note from Helga, venting about how she's being stalked by mysterious demons and ghastly figures as she goes around the place. Now, even in this timeline, where the Nazis are winning the war, they still get up to some pretty dumb shit. After a thorough search of the dig site for supplies and info, we head underground into a massive underground tunnel works and fortifications. And the deeper we get into the caves, the more things seem unstable. The ground is broken in parts and the enemies turn undead at the drop of a hat. Another cave section, another gunfight. As we come across more of Helga's goons losing a battle against the undead in the tombs below the graveyard surface, we find a brief mention about some mysterious gas that has leaked from the site, turning people into undead monsters. Once we make our way further into the caves, we come across what appears to be a ritual chamber, ancient looking walls and pylons. We start the process to unlock our way forward, and fire springs into the chamber as undead come at us from all sides. Now we need to survive them long enough for a massive door to drop behind you and allow you to move forward. This chamber really pulls no punches. The undead are all pissed and most likely on fire, so keep your distance. Through the fire and flames, we make to the final chamber to get ambushed again by Helga as she gloats about her brilliance and genius in her horrific discovery, summoning from the depths of hell a large frightening fleshy freak, showing control over it briefly before it does what all monsters do and betrays Helga and Schneider. It's now up to us to stop this beast. Target its big glowy mouth and be careful of its sweep attack. It doesn't do crazy damage, but it is a long fight, so you need all the health you can get. Also, the flesh golem is as blind as a bat, so while you have the ammo for it, don't be shy using your silenced pistol to take out the soldiers that jump in sporadically to attack you, keeping the golem's attention on them and off you for a little while, using explosives and anything else high damage while staying on the move, and you'll be golden. After one long and admittedly challenging fight, we take out the fleshy freak and finally get our hands on Helga's folder. But BJ, being BJ, gets knocked out again due to the chaos of the monster and falling rubble in the cave, and we awaken to our buddy Fergus, who is pulling BJ from the rubble, fuels him in on the last desperate plan to launch one final assault on the German homeland, ended with a line from BJ, "One more time, old man, and then you can rest." After beating Wolf Old Blood, I can say that it is solidly fun from start to finish. The gameplay is fun and intense, the guns, the combat are very loud and very punchy. Just the right amount of tension, mix stellar soundtrack really hits in certain spots to heighten that tension, take the solid gameplay even higher. And Brian Bloom's stellar performance makes BJ very grounded and very human, who comes across as a man doing his best in the face of truly overwhelming odds. Would I recommend Old Blood? Absolutely. Its mix of old and new make for an engaging experience from start to finish. Now once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.